Sandipan, before I start the session. There are a few pointers. I'll share my screen, right? And I would like to ask you, are you interested to share some of your, like it was mentioned on the mail, that would you be sharing some of your perception about your field or some of your research work at the end of the session?
Yeah, I mean, I can possibly, but the thing is, from the questions that you shared to me, my research is very different from that. So that will be a bit incoherent at the end of it. I don't know. I work better when I'm both given a question rather than asked to say something out of my own. I believe that the questions that you have said is pretty comprehensive, and we can just do that one. That's fine as well.
Done. Sounds good. So I'll start sharing my screen. Please let me know if you're able to see me. So I'll start recording the session likewise. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start the session. Thank you, Sandipan, for at such a short notice for giving your given your understanding and from the background where you're coming from. I understand you have a very tight schedule, but thank you that you had you decided to join this session, because what we are trying to do here is basically, who are we? We are the Early Birds Club. We are trying to create a more concrete network of entrepreneurs and mentors who are able to guide the aspiring youth and people who are looking their way forward in the industry. So as you know that there are very much know-hows are there on the Google website when you go to search something on Google. But when you talk about questions, there are many answers which are very biased. Like you get very diplomatic answers, whatever you ask Google. So there is a lot more out there to know about the field or the areas of research when you talk about ground reality, which is very different from what we see from behind the screen. So this session is going to be about you, your work, and what are your insights on such, know-hows, which we are talking about today. So welcome to the club. And so this is for our viewers basically, that what is this O2-Drive? So O2-Drive was an idea of our obstacle to opportunity, so that we are able to determine the loopholes which are there on certain aspects when you talk about entrepreneurship or taking up any leadership venture. So the entire session is about entrepreneurs or people who are aspiring to do something in the field of research. So our session today is with you, Sandipan Dasgupta. So Sandipan, I would like to know, I have presented the short portfolio from your end, but then I also want to know, what do you think when you talk about who is Sandipan? What should the audience know?
It's a pretty tough question actually. Just to give you a brief idea, so I come from India, and I moved to Israel about 4 years back for my PhD at the Weizmann Institute. Doing my PhD to understand basically how cells talk to each other, how they communicate, and what is the communication helping to do the cells achieve. So that's pretty much about my research. I'm also actively involved in community building as well. Currently, I am a global shaper at the World Economic Forum Global Shapers Community in Tel Aviv hub. I lead a team of 4 to basically try to understand how can we reduce the use of single-use plastics in the retail sector. Prior to that, which I'm also doing, I'm a co-founder and founding president of a club called the Weizmann Biotech Club. We started as a student club, but now it's a pretty big community of people who are interested to learn more about the biopharma industry, life science industry in general. Before coming to Israel, I worked briefly at a nonprofit in Delhi called Teach for India, and I graduated from Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Kolkata, in 2015.
So, Sandipan, since you have been all over the place, you started your career in biotechnology, in biosciences, and then you went ahead to do research. And now, when I have read your works on your website, I'll just give this insight for our audience that Sandipan Dasgupta also has a website. If you want to know about his work, his blogs, they are excellent to read about. And I have shared few of your work in my circle because I am an educationist, and from an educationist point of view, I am very much intimidated by people who work in this field because these are the future. They are the future of the global research market. So when you talk about researchers, they not only give us a lot of thinking. They let us think about the problems which are there in certain areas, but they also give solutions to them, and those solutions, they come from a perspective after a lot of market research. So I think this, your forum which you have created for yourself and the forum of connected people you are in, it's going to work a great deal in this field. So moving to our
Mhm.
very first question, Sandipan, uh, who are bio entrepreneurs? I am sure this session before we start is very important for people to know who are bio entrepreneurs. When I personally came across this term, it was very new for me because I see around students, many of my students, they have opted biotechnology, but when you ask them that what you are going to do after this, what is your aim of taking this career path in biotechnology, they decide that they would go in some IT company. So I feel people need to know that who are bio entrepreneurs.
That's a good question, actually. I don't have a clear definition of bio entrepreneurs for the reason that I'm not one of them yet. I want to be at some point, but not yet as of now. But broadly speaking, bio entrepreneurs are not entrepreneurs. So typical things that you see for a high tech or a software industry probably won't apply to bio entrepreneurs for the simple reason that it is technically very challenging and is extremely regulated. And as a result, not all ecosystems are as mature as probably Boston or Silicon Valley, which is one of the primary areas you'll find a lot of clusters of biotech ventures. One of the biggest difference between bio entrepreneurs and high-tech ecosystem, high-tech ventures is that you can start your internet startup from your garage or the basement of your apartment. You possibly can't do that when starting a biopharma industry. Now, life science industry is very broad, very, very broad, in fact, and is divided mostly into four categories. One is the medical technology devices. So those are devices that are used, say, for example, to measure your glucose levels or to determine a time when you should be given an insulin shot for diabetic patients. Those are things that are still less regulatory complicated, so you can still do it early on in your career. The next are diagnostics, which again is as the name suggests, is diagnostics are supposed to measure something and not treat a disease. Third is pharmaceuticals. These are, for example, the ibuprofen or aspirin that are given as a small molecule, small capsules or pills to the patients. And the fourth is the one of the most complicated is the biotech or slash biopharma, which are basically creating large biological molecules to treat a certain disease condition. Now, this I have arranged all four of them in the increasing orders of complexity of research and manufacturing and operations and regulatory affairs. So there's the reason there's a reason why if you take any of your say you just pick up go and see any favorite biotech company of your choice, and you won't find any college dropouts in the leadership positions. So there are no Mark Zuckerbergs over there. You will find people who are much older in their career, 40-year-olds, possibly multiple of them will have PhDs or advanced degrees, have worked in the industry for a quite an amount of time before actually committing to this venture, purely because it requires an extreme knowledge of subject matter expertise, extreme knowledge of the current disease landscape, therapeutic area, regulatory affairs, everything before committing. And it, of course, requires a huge, huge upfront investment. One of the biggest hallmarks of life science venture or biotechnology venture, especially, is that you possibly don't have a product when you have a product only after 10, 15 years of your starting of your company. The entire first 10 years would be just devoted to figuring out how do I find a product and testing these products in the patients. So that's pretty much it. You don't have a product, so you basically have to convince the world that I need the money to do something that can potentially radically change the world in some magnificent way that you possibly can't imagine. So that's the biggest hallmark, the difference between biotech ventures and high tech or software oriented ventures. So yeah, this is basically need a special breed of people who are able to start a company in such a very complex landscape or ecosystem.
So, Sandipan, if I'm not wrong, you have done your graduation from Calcutta, right?
That's correct.
So, how did you decide? You said it's a very broad spectrum. The field is open, and
Mhm.
when you have such broader options, it is many of the students they tend to get skeptical as to which career path to go for. How did you decide that you want to be in biopharma? You want to go in this particular field?
Honestly, it was not a conscious choice. It's not that I thought about it before committing to it. It just happened. I wanted to go to med school, but turned out that I like biology more than medicine. So I wanted to study a 5-year program in biology, which I loved every moment of it. Once I did that, so the place that I studied, the culture was more towards basic science. So everyone was going for their PhD. So I just took the road that is frequently traveled. So I also went for a PhD. I didn't honestly think about much about the future career prospects. I just felt that it's fun to study biology. It's fun to study like how human body behaves, how molecules at a cellular level can have such a dramatic impact on everything we do in our life. So why not figure out that? So I studied everything. I studied a lot of things. I studied animal psychology. I studied developmental biology before actually committing to the research that I'm currently doing. Honestly, yeah, I didn't have like a really solid plan. The interest kind of gradually developed when I studied about things other than my research along the way, and that's how kind of developed my interest. So some is very recent. It's not something I calculated well ahead of my career.
Interesting. I think sometimes our conscious decisions are, they give off better results because you didn't give up while you were on that career path. You just went forward and you were curious to know more and more. So that's what brought you here. And I have read a lot of your work, and it's pretty interesting to know that you are almost into research totally. So, I want to know that. There are many people who might confuse the word entrepreneur with something which is related to leadership or taking hold of a small venture and then going ahead with it. But as I understand, the market is very diverse and it requires a very diversified role. Like for to be an entrepreneur, you need to be everything. You need to be into operations, you need to be into leadership, you need to be into sales, pre-sales, everything. But when you talk about bio entrepreneur, it comes with a lot of research as well. So when you talk about
Mhm.
research, whether analytical or not, what do you feel works out the most? A marketable product. If you have a good product, can you just set up your business and you become a bio entrepreneur? Or as you said, you can have any business venture into biological sciences. Or if you have a good concept or idea in which you believe in, is it fruitful to invest in that idea for 15 to 20 years and then go ahead?
Cool. Good question as well again. Specifically for biopharma, there is no product for good amount of time when you start your venture. So you just have to believe in a concept which is backed by science. That's the most critical thing. If there is no hard evidence, scientific evidence to the concept you are trying for, you're pursuing, there is probably no way getting around it. I'm not sure about the other type of ventures, but in life sciences, specifically in biopharma, there are two kinds of companies that are out there, two kinds of ways in which companies are formed. One is when you have an invention and you want to use your invention to use or to cure human diseases. For example, you created a new way to make insulin, and then you look around, okay, how I can use this insulin for. You can use insulin for creating treating diabetic patients, or you can use insulin, say, for like animal husbandry. I'm just making it up. So you decide like which is the easier, the most profitable path. If I have this invention, if I want to bring it to the market, so you decide that maybe human insulin is probably more profitable, and let's go that way. So that's route one. Route two is when you want to do something specifically and you're looking for technologies that can help you in that. So for example, a lot of people have lost their loved ones to cancer, for example. Many people have lost their mothers or their sisters to breast cancer, and they were very passionate about curing breast cancer. So they started a company, or they started companies and licensed different technologies from different areas, or acquired small companies who are trying to cure breast cancer. So they amalgamate technologies, create companies, bring them together, and actually accelerate the process. So that way, there are two different ways in which you can create licensed companies. Both are pretty legit. So one actually had the technology, and one actually had the idea of market over there. So specifically as life science, just to summarize again, there is no product, so you don't have any product to begin with. You either have some initial evidence of a very solid piece of science, so you probably have a technology or invention and you think that the science is legit and you want to move forward with it, or you have an unmet need in clinical area. So there's something that you believe that you can treat along with your expertise, and then you go look for technologies and talk to people who can help you with that. So I believe, yeah, that's a more nuanced way of looking at bioscience ventures, because product is something that is practically non-existent in the initial days.
Thank you so much, Sandipan, because this is a question which is the most read question as per McKinsey's report. This is the most asked question which students in life sciences who are trying to get some counseling or some guidance on the career path, they have been asking this on Quora, because either there can be two ways, the answer can be two way around. Either they don't have a proper vision to go ahead with, or they don't know that exactly what life science is all about, and
Mhm.
only being an entrepreneur or having a lot of investment or good investment won't work around for them. So they
Mhm.
need to have a very concrete concept in which they actually believe in. So
That's
thank you
true.
so much. And
Yeah.
moving to the next question. So Sandipan, when in February 2019, I had read your bio. Uh, in February 2019, along with three other students, you formed the Weizmann Biotech Club, if I'm pronouncing it right. And when you co-founded the club, your idea was to connect people from life science background, and you actually were very pretty much successful on that, because I've seen that club's website also. So what do you feel that do you feel that this idea of connecting or creating network of such people would change the way they are approaching this field? What is the
Surely.
idea
I mean,
behind it?
surely. Yeah, I would love to talk to you about the idea. So to give you an idea of how the geographical location of the place that I'm currently sitting is located, so you have the university, which is the institute over here, and there's a big bridge going across outside the campus, and there is a place on the other side of the bridge, which in Hebrew it is called connect. It translates to the science park. It's about a couple of square kilometers of area, and that probably has close to 50 biopharma companies, all R&D stage or preclinical stage. And we saw that we have this amazing university here, and we have people over on that side of the bridge actually trying to use the research to actually cure human diseases at various stages of the life cycle. But there was a big void between how in which people talk to each other, because there was no channel of communication. And I said that is very frustrating. You have basically the only thing dividing between us is that bridge, which is basically you just cross over it, and that's how you do it. So why not create a channel of communication between the people who are in the academia and people who are in the industry, to basically get them talking to each other about what they do. So the industry people, they usually come over and talk to us about the science, not just about the science, but the various aspects of the careers, because one of the biggest ways you can learn about your own career is to basically learn about others' careers. Not seeking advice, but just learning the story. How did you do it? What worked for you, and what you wish that you could have done previously? And we just created that communication channel. We hosted multiple events across various themes, starting with entrepreneurship, but not just it. We talked about in general about intellectual property, regulatory affairs, effect of different geographies, how about Israel versus US, etc., about everything. So this just created a more candid conversation in a very relaxed environment. And the idea was again to just let people know what are the possibilities in the industry beyond just a pure research, because life science is a very complicated animal, and it really can't be thought about the way that you make something and it will go and sell something. It requires concerted effort of a lot of types of people, and that was the exact aim that we wanted. I mean, by which we started this club, and I believe we are doing pretty well till now.
So, Sandipan, I would like to know that do you feel that this forum is more open to people from other fields also, from from a science background, because they also have a lot of ideas to contribute to life sciences as well. Because you yourself said that this is a very broader, there is a broader spectrum of science. So, do
Mhm.
you think that your forum is more open to them? Does it allow people from other related fields also to join you in your conversations or in your research?
Always we are open to everyone. When we have any event, we advertise it openly. The only, if it's a in-person event, the only limitation is that you have to be in Israel, unless you want to fly in. But if it is an online event, the last event we had was online, and we basically were joined by people from everywhere in the world. So it's a completely open forum, but I can't really vouch for how it will help you. That is something, I mean, we put up the event details, but usually, but you have to judge best for yourself that if it help you or not. But for purely for learning purpose, this is completely open, free event. Like if you have like half an hour to spare, why not just learn something new?
Thank you so much. That would help a lot of people out there who are looking forward to join such forums, because they also are looking forward to know about others' perception or others' vision. So learning never stops for everyone. So now coming to a question which is basically a research-based question. There was a research that as the number of products are rising in biopharma market, and there has been a immense technological shift and even cost related stress on that market, because there is a lot of competition. This one challenge is moving on, that there is one line, one product, and it is required to manage both the current and future technologies under one roof, because you need to
Mhm.
keep updating. When you talk about life sciences, I'm sure that you also keep on researching more and more into new upgrades made in technology. So when you talk about such a technological shift, what do you feel that in the future, what is the scope of biopharma? Where does it stand? Does operational advancement help more research is required, or there would be a massive technological shift and huge investments which are going to be there across the globe?
Cool. That's an important question as well. Well, they've over the course of last 20 years, perhaps, there's a huge shift in how life science companies operate, essentially their business models. So if I take you back to 1980s or even early 1990s, is the biggest silver bullet that every company was chasing back then. All your Pfizer's and Johnson and Johnson and Novartis, what they were chasing were a drug called a magic drug or a magic bullet that can potentially cure a billion people, and you can get $1 billion in 1 year, which is essentially the definition of a blockbuster drug. So which means they were looking for more drugs that fit this definition of one line, one product. However, that market is kind of saturated now, and there usually are no such diseases left that affect a lot of people. Diseases are usually more dispersed. They actually are limited to either certain geographies or certain genetic conditions, or basically what I'm saying is patient populations are now a lot fragmented. It's unlikely that you will find the same disease to be occurring in the US and also be occurring in the India, and you can treat them exactly with the same kind of drug, except probably now coronavirus vaccines. So things are kind of changing in that way. So a lot of companies have now shifted the business model to basically target those fragmented patient populations, and in turn have higher revenue per product rather than have selling a lot and charging less per product. So for example, to give you an example, there's this concept called rare diseases, and these are diseases that actually affect less than 20,000 people in the US and approximately similar kind of people in Europe. Rare disease, I'm not sure about the definition in India. So these are the diseases that actually affect a lot less people, and that is why historically they have been neglected by the license companies. But recently, the FDA, the regulatory authorities, actually have said that if you launch your drugs in the rare diseases category, you will be given certain kind of benefits in accelerated approval and similar processes. As a result, it gives the companies to actually charge much more than probably a regular cancer drug, which actually affects a lot of people. For example, 2 years back, Novartis, which is a large pharma company, they launched a drug for a disease condition called spinal muscular atrophy. It's a very, very rare disease, probably affects less than 1,000 people in the US. But they charge close to $1.2 million per year for that. Now, that kind of works in the US because the patient doesn't pay $1.2 million. The money is paid by the insurance companies. And because it's such a rare occurrence, the insurance companies don't really care paying that much amount of drug if the patient number is so low. But that probably won't work in India that way. But the story behind the drug is that Novartis didn't develop that entire thing. And this is exactly how business model has shifted. The entire drug development program that starts with research, then you have optimization, then you try out on animals, then you try out on humans, and then you launch the drug, is kind of broken down into multiple parts. Now, previously, the same company used to do the entire thing, starting from research to launching the drugs. Now they're kind of specifically focused on the niche areas. So someone will do the research, someone will do the clinical testing, and someone will do the launch. Novartis didn't do the research on this drug. The drug was actually came out of a very small company called Avixis. They bought this company later, and that's how they launched it. So it depends on which stages of the clinical program you're talking about. If you're talking about the initial development stage, research is important. If you're talking about the clinical stage, regulatory affairs are important. If you're talking about launch and actually selling the drugs after everything is launched, then of course operational advancement is important because that's where you're most bothered about the cost of manufacturing. But at research stage, you don't really care about the cost because you're just focused on actually what works and what doesn't work.
So, Sandipan, this is just I'm shifting the tangent of the conversation, I suppose, but I'm interested in what you said actually. Have you ever heard about the disease called SLE, lupus nephritis?
No, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, I have been a patient of SLE, and this is what I was told at the hospital in India, that SLE is a very rare disease. It hits almost like 1% or 10% of the population. Only females are, victim of such a disease. Um,
Mhm,
the root cause is yet unknown, and
mhm,
I had done a lot of research while I was suffering through that same phase of undergoing treatment, undergoing biopsies, undergoing plasma therapies, but nothing worked out. What they did,
mhm,
so I realized that there is a hit and trial going on in the even in the biopharma sector, or you call the pharmaceutical sector, because
mhm,
every other doctor was prescribing a different kind of medicine. Like someone was prescribing steroids, someone was prescribing Visalon, but
mhm.
still the root cause is not known. So do you feel that since biopharma companies are right now, they are taking a lot of stretch on research, so do you think that they are going to consider different diversified forms of a single particular disease? Because for SLE only, there are 13 different kind of SLE which is found in among patients, and the root
Mhm.
cause is still unknown. So, do you feel that such unknown aspects of a disease, or from where it is coming from, this is going to be a part of research in the coming future?
Definitely, definitely, and that's what the reason why this large regulatory bodies around the world, such as the Federal Drug Administration in the US and European Medical Agency in Europe, they're actually creating very favorable pharma programs for this neglected diseases. There are also a lot of both financial and non-financial support for the tropical neglected diseases. But sadly, those diseases and those programs are localized to heavily to geography dependent programs. So there are certain diseases which are considered rare in the US, might not be considered in the Europe and vice versa. And since most of the innovation happens there, so the researchers are actually bothered about creating products only for those kind of geographies. Sadly, India as of now doesn't have biopharma innovation to the level of what US and Europe has, and probably that's the reason why we don't have that strict regulations about what considered as rare disease and not. So, for example, if you see that if you have a lot of people suffering from this condition in India, they should probably encourage researchers to undertake to understand what causes the disease and what can potentially revert it. So probably you'll see a lot of Indian researchers also jumping into the boat and trying to find this. But sadly, as of now, it's still a bit of a geography dependent constraint that we are working with. Uh, Sadly, there is no global pharma organization, a global drug organization that dictates the terms for everyone. So that's still we're working on.
So I'll share my screen again. I want to know that since you have been associated a lot with, you must have a lot of conversation with, other people in your same field. So where do you think that what is going to be the scope of, what is going to be the advancement in biopharma in the coming 5 years? Because obviously there has been a tangible shift in the entire spectrum of biopharma given the crisis and the pandemic we are in. So, do you think that after this, post this pandemic, there is going to be a lot of development towards the technological shift or the research sector in biopharma?
Um, to some extent, yes, but to what extent that I'm not sure of. But firstly, 5 years is a very short amount of time in pharma time scale. So practically, yeah, 5 years is practically nothing. It's just one PhD thesis. So that's pretty much you're talking about. Um, but I believe that there will be a lot of focus on studying infectious diseases. So I believe there will be some kind of motivation for researchers and also certain companies to develop vaccines or similar therapies for treating infectious diseases. And it's not that people are not doing that, but probably there will be increased and renewed focus on that. But other than that, with my conversations that I had with people in the field, feels like this is a relatively unaffected sector. Um, I haven't heard of any major job losses, maybe few in the manufacturing sectors, but not much at the earlier stages of drug development. Um, but again, 5 years is a very short amount span of time. Maybe in the 10 years, again, I don't think this is something that would really have a direct impact on the industry, apart from probably have more increased focus on infectious diseases. My best guess is that this is gonna go as it was going.
So, when we talk about, sorry, when we talk about biotechnology or biopharma, it is no more a road less taken, because if I was going through some of the questions which were asked on career portals regarding biopharma from students all around the globe, but then now students are more asked questions about what after biopharma. That means they're actually pursuing this field as a career option. So, what do you think that since the scope of the work ranges from research, sales, marketing, administration, quality control, what are the trends that are going to fundamentally reshape this industry currently? What are the trends in biopharma that you have been seeing following up?
This Well, I wish someone had asked me this question when I was starting because I was totally unsure of what was out there. But you're right, there are a range of roles that you can potentially do. One of the things that I see that is not mentioned here is legal part, which is a big part of biopharma industry. And I've seen a lot of people who actually went to do a law degree after their PhDs just to understand what's happening behind there. The trends of again, the world that you're living in is a very different world than what it used to be 50 years back. Um, the way in which we treat diseases are also different. Previously, we used to uh, try to manage a disease. No one was actually trying to cure diabetes. They were only trying to manage diabetes. We are still trying to cure cancer. I don't know if it's possible because you can only manage it. So things are actually changing now. We are going for more and more personalized way of treating a disease. So we're trying to understand what makes you and me different when it comes to diabetes. Do you have the same way do my body respond to the same way to diabetes as you or not? And if yes, then great. If not, then how? And if there's a difference, how can we use a difference to specifically treat me that will probably not badly affect you? So there is a huge shift on firstly treating at the level of individual, which essentially is called personalized medicine. Secondly, there is a higher rate of diagnosis of diseases because of all technological advancement. So we know more people are sick just because they're being diagnosed well. And thirdly, there is a focus on genetic diseases because the biggest thing with the genetic diseases and with a lot of emerging technologies is you can actually cure them. So which is something not possible with more chronic diseases. Diseases that you develop of old age, you possibly can't cure, you can really manage them. But diseases that are more genetic, for example, breast cancer that is caused by certain genes can now be completely cured because you can really cure those bad genes. So these are the things I think will shape the just shape the entire size of the industry. But the segments are pretty much going to be the same, but they also increase in size because the entire industry is getting bigger.
Thank you so much, Sandipan. So now this is my favorite part of the entire session. I want to know more that do you think that investing in biotech and R&D has yielded better returns than the pharma industry average? So the current statistics show that the biologics development pipeline is supporting the outlook of a very healthy continued growth. As you said, that down the line 10 years there is going to be a growth in both trend wise, scope wise also. So when you talk about the growth that the patents applied for every year has been growing by 25% since 1995. So
Mhm.
which biopharma ventures which are currently at a budding stage do you think are positioned to succeed in the foreseeable future?
This the answer to this question will depend on the person that you ask, and that will be heavily biased by their own background. Like every scientist has got their favorite field of science, and they will just vouch for this is the thing, this is the next big thing that I'm looking for. But in general, people who are in the market, they actually have very defined matrices and rubrics to see what actually is a good field for them in terms of market returns and what is possibly not. So I told you previously of rare diseases. Those are the diseases that actually can yield a lot of returns, and companies which have historically worked on rare diseases has been the darling of the Wall Street, attracting millions of investment because they can churn out billions of dollars in either acquisitions or sales. Um, if you ask me personally, I think I'm pretty much amazed by gene therapy. These are the therapies that I just told you that you can possibly fix a broken gene in your body, which previously was not thought of as possible. But now with the new advancements in technology, you can possibly take a bad gene of your body and actually cure them, and this will be a lifelong cure. So you don't need to actually go and visit the doctor once in a year to get take a shot in somewhere in the body, but it will be just one-time thing. You are born. You are detected when you were in mother's womb, the prenatal testing. You take the therapy after you are born, and that's it. You are done. This is an immense value for everyone, both for the providers, both from the payers, and also for the patients as well. But the only thing is that since we don't have any idea about how to administer this kind of medication, both like how to financially reimburse for this kind of drugs. So a lot of people, specifically in the regulatory authorities and in the insurance industry, are kind of still figuring it out. How do we even pay for these therapies? Because they are one-time therapies. They are not given all throughout the year, and usually they're very, very expensive. They're basically the most expensive drugs that are out there in the market right now. Period. Gene therapies are the most expensive drugs. So how do we pay for them? So scientifically it's very exciting, but for the commercial part of it, it's still people are still figuring it out. How do we pay for this kind of new treatment paradigms that we haven't seen before? We're still the insurance industry is still satisfied with pills and injections that you take all throughout the year, cost a few dollars or few tens of hundreds of dollars. But now they're basically posed with a new challenge, and they better figure out sooner than later.
Thank you so much, Sandipan. Sandipan, before we actually wind up the session, I would like to ask you a question that what is the basic insight which you feel, or what are the three main know-hows of biopharma industry which you feel that every student or every person who is aspiring to go into this field should know about? What are those three know-hows which you have learned through your course of time?
Uh, I mean, three is pretty short. I mean, too few. I can possibly go on day and day understanding what I've learned. But the first thing is science is important. Uh, the more time you spend doing good science, well-controlled science, because science has also come in various flavors. They can be very solid science, or they can be science that can have pose further questions. So the more time you ask the right questions in the beginning, the lesser time you will spend correcting those errors that you committed early on. So science is the underlying backbone on which the entire industry is standing on. So yeah, focusing that to get the science right is very important. Secondly, to understand how complex the industry is. There are two kinds of people in the industry: people who innovate and people who sell. I mean, they take the product and take to the market. The problem is people who innovate don't appreciate the people who sell, and people who sell don't appreciate the people who innovate. Just so I think one of the things that you can realize early on is that this entire ecosystem is extremely complex, and it takes 10 to 12 years to take a research from your laboratory to the patients to the into the hospitals. So to understand that is very complex and just requires time. It requires a concerted effort. A lot of people with different expertise is important. So developing that humility to talk to various people about whatever you're doing is extremely important as well. And thirdly is we are still stuck with a lot of regulations which are just artificial, and that is holding back not just the research but taking the research to the patients as well. So, and I don't know how to fix that, because that is something at the level of bureaucracy, how easy or hard it is to fix that, but I'm sure we can fix that. And again, the sooner we figure this out is better for everyone, that we get it right.
Thank you so much, Sandipan. I had such an exciting and interesting session with you. I'm not from that particular field, but I got to know a lot from you. You said some terms in layman terms, like you gave generic examples, so which helped a lot. I think it will be helping a lot of them out there also who are going to see this video sooner or later to understand the basic know-hows. So I welcome you on board with the Early Words Club, and I would be soon launching this session on our YouTube channel as well as on our page and our media partners. Our media partners are News Sense and Incredible India and Incredible Agartala. So we are going to launch this entire video and session with you there. So we are going to have a lot of questions. We are creating a forum of student portal wherein many students are going to connect with us from this similar background, and they are going to ask you questions which they want to know. So what I'm going to do, that post the session launches online and is on air, the questions I would be getting in, I would compile them all and I would send across to you. So whenever you find time, you just you can answer them and you can help them out in whatever ways you can. So thank you so much, Sandipan, and I hope that next time we do conduct a webinar session with you, where you can keep the floor open for all sorts of questions.
Happy to do
Right.
that. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandipan. So until next time, see you again.